So this move, instead of 1, 6, 2, 5, which is very conventional, we have 1, 6, 2, flat 7, dominant 7.
Okay.
Just totally unexpected when you hear it run off like that. But in the context, beautiful. And this motion, I told you about strawberry fields, man. That harkens to the White Album, this B minor to G motion. This is 5/7 of, this is like a tongue twister. It's the flat 7 dominant 7th.
Hello.
Yeah. Now, when you think about it, A is our root, right? And if we travel up the A scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and Roman numerals, this is the 7. Now G doesn't fit in there at all. This is a G sharp here.
Okay.
G sharp, right? So the flat 7, Roman numeral, is this. You flat the 7, this chord on the 7th step, you take it down a half step, the entire chord, and instead, where it would normally sits at the 7 as a diminished, you put a dominant 7.
Okay.
I've described this chord to you before. Wow, my mind is really not working today. There was Fiona Apple is the one I told you about that uses this a lot.
Oh, okay.
So it's a resolution like, say, I'll make a progression of. There it is, the flat 7 dominant 7.
Sure.
Okay, so it's got a fancy name, but all you got to think about it, if your root chord is a major, you go down a whole step and make a 7th chord from it,
okay.
Dominant 7th, and you get that sound. Typically, it sounds much richer and more luxurious when you make it a 9th chord. It's just beautiful in that context. Like, if you have a major 7 chord,
okay.
Duke Ellington relied on this kind of sound.
Isn't that also a sound like in bossa nova and
Sure, yeah.
Latin American?
Yeah.
Yeah. Duke Edward Kennedy Ellington.
All right, so and what this does also is here, instead of going like this, which would have been a straight Ionian scale based on the 1 of the key, this introduces the Mixolydian note, which is G and not G sharp. Remember.
You're right.
But Mixolydian is right. So when we go, it really naturally falls in at that point because he introduced it earlier.
Right.
Granted as a dominant 7th, but the root is there. The G root is there, and that's enough. That's enough to make that kind of, the ear recognize it.
Right.
You know. And at the end of the progression, so we get. Now we're moving from kind of Mixolydian. I say kind of because this is dominant 7th, and in Mixolydian it's just a major.
Okay.
But nonetheless, it's kind of Mixolydian. We've introduced, in other words, a chord from way out of the key, but we're bringing it back to the basic Ionian there by adding this E7 as the 5.
Mm-hmm.
So far we have 2 dominant 7th chords. One is the natural 5-to-1 relationship. And then we have the G7, which is the flat 7 dominant 7th relationship. So the 2 resolutions, if you compare them.
That chord also just begs to be resolved, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. You wouldn't want to do a whole song with that.
All right, so you could radiate anything you want. And you know what I found interesting was I remember when I tried to ear out the tune without a guitar, when it went B minor to G the first time, I kind of recognized it. But the second time I didn't. I thought it was a different chord. And the reason why was he changed his melody note. And that gave me a different sense of the chord. So you can read anything you want. You can... So da 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 da, which gives you the 13th of the chord. So it sounds almost like it's a different chord root, even though it isn't.
Yeah, I know. That's a very different sound.
Yeah, and it works really well. And because he's hitting this, we get that E when the E7 comes in. So it's intuitively that was a really nice movement, very smooth way of transitioning.
Was anybody else using that kind of at the time?
Anybody at the time, like other artists outside of the Beatles, or
Yeah, or writers.
Yeah, around this time, songs like The Letter came out.
Okay.
You know,
Okay, there we go.
Yeah. So that motion, Joe Cocker used it. There were a lot of guys that were using that stuff.
Okay.
It's funny, the Beatles set the precedent. Like, for example, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, you have... Right? Well, then you have Chicago going...
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing, but it was the Beatles that always stated it first, and then other guys flew with it.
Okay.
That was the cool thing about them. They said, okay, here's this.
Yeah.
And other guys would take it and run.
Everybody grabbed it.
Thinking they were being original, which is really funny. But then again, the Beatles were derivative.
Or being original Beatles.
All right, so then we go into... Now, you notice, remember earlier in my demonstration I said, I'm going to take that... and I said, I'm just going to make it triads. Well, the funny thing is, later on, McCartney does the triads. He goes... Right?
Is he staying solidly within the rhythm with this, or is he altering it somewhat?
No, he's very, very straight.
Is
it's
it?
actually right on the quarter notes. And this is a waltz in 1, 2, 3,
Right.
1, 2, 3, or 6,
Okay.
8, however you want to see it. But he's sitting right on those beats. Dun, dun, dun. Now, that, everything has got to be just like you want it to. It's suggesting the E chord. And instead they let it hang with really badly done vocals, for the Beatles anyway, for their standards, they let that go.
Yeah.
And again, it was like, okay, well, we're doing rock and roll, so it's cool, But that's not true, because when the Beatles in the early days did rock and roll, their voices were flawless. They sounded exactly like their own records,
Oh. Okay.
So they slacked, they slacked. Lennon's voice is particularly bad in this.
Yeah.
This is nice. What he does there, Harrison, let me see. That's against the G chord. And his resolution note is the 7th, which is always nice and sour.
Yeah.
He had an uncanny knack for finding the sour note and exploiting it.
Huh?
And there's Harrison's ingenuity coming in there, And I don't know, see, Harrison, sometimes I wonder if Harrison was the guy that had the most music theory of all of them.
Really?
Yeah, because when I saw him, an early clip of the Beatles doing Till There Was You, he was doing these advanced jazz forms, and the chord forms. I was watching him. He did like 13 flat 9 chords and stuff, and I'm like, where do you get this at this young age? Where did you find this stuff, So yeah.
Well, that particular tune, though, was Meredith Wilson's, right?
Yeah, it wasn't theirs. It was a cover.
So, but he had sort of a written music, or...
I'd have to hear the original to know if
Yeah.
he's ripped the exact part that was written for guitar, if there was indeed a guitar in it, as far as...
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Don't know either.
But that move, I mean, he's clearly following the chord because it's first of all it's a minor third bend, which is a huge bend, and that's the fifth of the G chord. This note, this is the third of the G chord, and the seventh. Now, what makes it particularly sour is the fact that he's jumping the tritone interval.
Okay.
If he went, it would have been smoothed out a little bit, but
right.
no, he's jumping right to that sour note. So, kudos to Harrison for having that. He was really pissed off because McCartney was telling him what to do. And there's a moment in Let It Be where, it's a really snarky moment, like, McCartney's just giving him shit about, like, no, you should do this like this, and Harrison's sitting there going, I'll do it any way you want to.
Yeah, for the sake of harmony.
But you could tell he's just thoroughly pissed off at him. That's an old trick, this is sixth. To me, that was kind of, like all the stuff he does on this song and on this album, this kind of sixth thing, which was developed, by the way, by my friend Bruce Langhorne. He was the guy he was the guy that started doing sixths on guitars, and everybody started doing it. Especially like in Motown and stuff. But this motion is just, you could hear it in Joe Cocker, his music again, and
Sure.
forgot the name of his guitar player. But it became a popular thing, and to me that's kind of a knee-jerk, easy thing to chuck in there.
Yeah. Looks and sounds like you're cool.
Yeah, but it's funny, in my band when we do Use Me, we have that opening lick, and I would do this, which is a sixth, and one time in live performance I went, which is just the same trick. And Mike gave me this big smile, the other guitarist gave me this big smile, like, oh, that's really cool.
Oh,
and to me it was
tasty.
like business as usual. Like,
Yeah.
big deal.
Yeah. Hey, it's Tuesday.
And we're not going to have time for Across the Universe.
Okay.
Here it is, again. See, the song should have well been over by now. There's nothing else to be said.
Yeah.
And this is what I call a list song, which really annoy me after a while. List songs, like the lyrics are a list of things. I did this, I did, like the CIA, like the FBI, like, blah, 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 like this, like that, like that. Lennon was getting into this kind of lazy stuff, too. And he thought he could get away with it because of Dylan.
Okay.
Dylan wrote the best list songs ever. I mean, because his images were so amazing, he could get away with it. But Lennon, he was just lazy at this point.
My acquaintance Mark Nutter, who's written a lot of novelty songs, keyboard player, but on his last album, he's got a tune called Things, and it's all done with this sincerity of a serious lounge singer with these are things after. He just rattles off a bunch of no connection at all. These are things.
That reminds me of I got this idea for something called the Sinatra Fire, and I have like 10 rules of Frank. And one of the rules is you could drop as many words as you please. Like in the Joe Piscopo thing.
Oh, right. Well, you just leave out
words.
A sentence and just leave out words.
Like Joe Piscopo does Sinatra, and he does like Under My Thumb. He goes, "The change has come." Thumb.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So I thought, what if you did like the song from Hair, Aquarius, and you went moon, house, Jupiter, Mars.
These are things. Alrighty.
All right,
Well, we have to do a download here too, though.
All right. There are no more surprises, really. Just little nuanced stuff like we have that one already, and then which is easily fingered out off the chords, really, and that could have been, you know, a lot of the stuff the Beatles did like that. George Martin would take it and run and put like trumpets doing that or something, ba 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 ba, or something like that, you know. But they're kind of indwelling inside of it, you know.
Is this also this sort of use, this type of fingering, big with bluegrass? Like they'll just within the chord,
Yes,
they'll
yes.
just work on stuff.
Yeah.
And not go too far outside of it, whatever.
Yeah, if you recall the whole thing, the lesson I gave on the pentatonic scale against the key of G. That sort of thing, you're just using notes from the pentatonic and it works.
Yeah.
That's the same exact principle. One thing I teach is that surrounding every major and minor chord is a pentatonic scale within it.
Okay.
Like if I take the very bare bones of an F sharp minor, right? It's like a constellation surrounding the core of this galaxy here. You get the pentatonic scale.
Okay. Great. Young Vincent, I think we are done today.
All right. So yeah, let's do the download thing and then, yeah.
All right. Why don't we end it with a big Caggiano smile?